The perfect life that wasn't. Elena Martinez wiped the sweat from her forehead as she checked the oven one last time. The aroma of her grandmother's famous tres leches cake filled the small kitchen of Casa Martinez, the restaurant that had been in her family for 3 generations. At 26, she had poured her heart and soul into keeping this place alive, even when the bills piled up and the customers became fewer each month. "Elena, table 5 is asking for you again," called Maria, her oldest waitress who had worked for her grandmother. "They want to compliment the chef personally." Elena smiled and removed her apron. These moments made everything worthwhile. She walked into the dining room, her dark hair pulled back in a neat bun, her chef's uniform crisp despite the long day. But her smile froze when she saw who was sitting at table 5. Daniel Blackwood stood up, his expensive suit perfectly tailored, his blonde hair styled with precision. In his hands he held a small velvet box. Around them, other diners had already noticed and were watching with anticipation. "Elena," Daniel said, his voice smooth as honey, "we've been together for 2 years. You've shown me what real food tastes like, what real passion means. You've changed my life." Elena's heart began to race. This couldn't be happening. Not here, not now, not when she had so many problems to solve. "I love you," Daniel continued, dropping to one knee. "Will you marry me?" The restaurant erupted in applause. Elena felt tears streaming down her face as she nodded, unable to speak. Daniel slipped the diamond ring onto her finger, and she thought her heart might burst from happiness. Finally, something was going right in her life. The cracks began to show. 3 weeks later, Elena was still floating on air. Daniel had been coming to the restaurant more often, asking questions about her recipes, taking notes on his phone. He said he wanted to learn about her world, to understand what made her food so special. "Tell me more about your grandmother's secret spice blend," Daniel said one evening as they sat in the empty restaurant after closing. "What makes it so unique?" Elena hesitated. Her grandmother had made her promise never to share the full recipe with anyone outside the family. But Daniel was going to be her husband. Surely that counted as family. "It's a combination of Mexican and Spanish spices," she began, "passed down for over 100 years. The exact proportions are what make it special." Daniel leaned forward, his eyes intense. "And you're the only one who knows it?" "Yes," Elena said softly. "My grandmother taught me before she died. She said it was my responsibility to protect it." Something flickered in Daniel's eyes, but it disappeared so quickly Elena thought she had imagined it. He kissed her forehead gently. "Your secret is safe with me, my love." But that night Elena couldn't sleep. Something felt wrong, though she couldn't explain what. She had given Daniel access to her recipes, her techniques, even the suppliers she used. He said he wanted to help her restaurant succeed. But lately, she noticed him photographing pages from her grandmother's old recipe book when he thought she wasn't looking. The truth revealed. The betrayal came on a cold Tuesday morning. Elena arrived at the restaurant early, as she always did, to prepare for the lunch service. But when she unlocked the door, she heard voices coming from her office. "I told you I have everything we need," Daniel's voice said. "The recipes, the techniques, the supplier contacts. We can open our own version of Casa Martinez within 3 months." Elena's blood turned to ice. She crept closer to the door, her hand shaking. "But what about Elena?" That was Sophia's voice. Sofia Rodriguez, Elena's best friend since childhood. The woman who had been her maid of honor at dress fittings. "Won't she notice?" Daniel laughed, and the sound made Elena's stomach turn. "By the time she figures it out, we'll already have her entire menu. My father's lawyers will tie her up in court for years if she tries to claim we stole anything. And honestly, who's going to believe a failing restaurant owner over the Blackwood name?" "I still feel bad," Sophia said. "We've been friends forever." "You'll feel better when you're managing the most successful restaurant in the city," Daniel replied. "Besides, you said yourself that Elena was always too soft, too trusting. She was never going to make it in this business." Elena felt like she'd been stabbed in the heart. Her fiancé and her best friend had been plotting against her. Every intimate moment, every shared secret, every vulnerable conversation had been a lie designed to steal everything her family had built. She burst through the door, her eyes blazing with fury and tears. Get out. Daniel's face went pale, but he recovered quickly, his expression shifting to something cold and calculating. Elena, let me explain. Explain what? Elena's voice was shaking but loud. Explain how you've been using me? How you never loved me? How you and my best friend have been planning to destroy me? Sophia at least had the decency to look ashamed. Elena, I'm sorry. I never meant for. Get out. Elena screamed. Both of you, get out of my restaurant. The fire that changed everything. Daniel's mask dropped completely. His handsome face twisted into something ugly and mean. Your restaurant? This dump is barely staying afloat. You should be thanking me for seeing any value in your grandmother's old recipes. At least we'll actually make them profitable. Those recipes are mine, Elena said fiercely. They belong to my family. You have no right. I have every right, Daniel interrupted. You gave them to me willingly. You showed me everything. And there's nothing you can do about it. He grabbed Sophia's hand and pulled her toward the door. But before leaving, he turned back to Elena with a cruel smile. Oh, and the wedding is off, obviously. You can keep the ring, though. Consider it payment for the recipes. They left Elena standing in her office, her entire world crashing down around her. She sank into her grandmother's old chair and sobbed until she had no tears left. That night, Elena stayed late at the restaurant, going through her grandmother's recipe book, trying to figure out what to do. She couldn't afford lawyers. She couldn't prove that Daniel had stolen anything since she'd shared it willingly. She was ruined. At midnight, exhausted and heartbroken, Elena finally decided to go home. She locked up the restaurant, taking one last look at the place that held so many memories. As she walked to her car, she didn't notice the figure watching from across the street. An hour later, her phone rang. It was Maria screaming hysterically. Elena! The restaurant! It's on fire! Elena drove back like a madwoman, her heart pounding. When she arrived, flames were shooting through the roof of Casa Martinez. Firefighters were already there, but it was clear they were fighting a losing battle. She tried to run inside, screaming about her grandmother's recipe book, but strong arms held her back. Let me go, she sobbed. Everything I have is in there. It's too dangerous, a firefighter said. The whole building is about to collapse. Elena watched helplessly as 3 generations of her family's legacy burned to ashes. The fire department later determined it was arson. Someone had deliberately set the fire, probably to destroy evidence. And Elena knew exactly who was responsible. The mysterious offer. The next few weeks were the darkest of Elena's life. The insurance company refused to pay out, claiming she might have set the fire herself for the money. Without the restaurant, she had no income. She moved into a tiny apartment, sold everything she owned, and took a job washing dishes at a corporate restaurant chain just to survive. One evening, as she was leaving work, a black car pulled up beside her. The window rolled down, revealing a man she'd never seen before. He was in his early 30s, with dark hair and intense gray eyes that seemed to see right through her. Elena Martinez? He asked. She took a step back, wary. Who's asking? My name is Marcus Stone. I'd like to talk to you about Daniel Blackwood. At the mention of that name, Elena's entire body tensed. I have nothing to say about him. Even if I told you I could help you get revenge? Elena stopped walking. She turned to look at the stranger more carefully. He was handsome in a dangerous way, dressed in an expensive suit that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe. Everything about him screamed money and power. Why would you want to help me? She asked suspiciously. Marcus smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Because Daniel Blackwood destroyed something precious to me too. And I believe in the old saying, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. What do you want from me? Get in the car, Marcus said. I'll explain everything over dinner. Unless you're satisfied with washing dishes for the rest of your life, while Daniel profits from your family's legacy. Elena hesitated. Every instinct told her to walk away, that getting involved with this mysterious stranger would only lead to more trouble. But then she thought about Daniel's cruel smile, about Sophia's betrayal, about watching her grandmother's restaurant burn while the people responsible walked free. She opened the car door and got in. A dangerous partnership. Marcus took her to an elegant restaurant on the top floor of a downtown skyscraper. The view of the city lights was breathtaking, but Elena barely noticed. She was too focused on the man sitting across from her, studying her with those penetrating gray eyes. 3 years ago, Marcus began, my younger sister Isabella worked as a sous chef at one of Daniel's father's restaurants. She was talented, ambitious, and she had dreams of opening her own place someday. He paused, and Elena saw real pain flash across his face. There was a fire. The Blackwoods had been cutting corners on safety inspections, bribing officials to look the other way. When the fire broke out, the emergency exits were blocked. Isabella and 3 other people died that night. Elena felt her breath catch. I'm so sorry. The Blackwoods covered it up, Marcus continued, his voice hard. They paid off the families, buried the evidence, and made sure no one ever connected them to the fire. But I've been watching them for 3 years, waiting for the right moment to bring them down. And I'm supposed to be your weapon? Elena asked. Marcus leaned forward. You're supposed to be my partner. Daniel made a mistake when he targeted you. He thought you were just another easy victim, someone he could use and discard. But I see something different in you, Elena. I see fire. I see someone who refuses to stay down. I'm nobody, Elena said bitterly. I'm a failed restaurant owner with no money, no connections, and no future. You're a talented chef who knows the Blackwood family's weaknesses, Marcus corrected. You have something they want and they underestimated you. That's going to be their downfall. Elena shook her head. Even if I wanted revenge, what could I possibly do? They have lawyers, money, and power. I have nothing. Marcus smiled, and this time there was something predatory in it. You have me. And I have resources you can't imagine. I'm not asking you to forgive and forget, Elena. I'm offering you a chance to make them pay for what they did. To you, to your family, to my sister. He slid a business card across the table. Think about it. When you're ready to stop being a victim and start being a force to be reckoned with, call me. Elena picked up the card, feeling its expensive weight in her fingers. Everything about this was insane. She should walk away, rebuild her life slowly and safely. But as she thought about Daniel's smug face and the ashes of her family's restaurant, she felt something ignite in her chest. It wasn't hope exactly. It was something darker, fiercer, and more dangerous. It was the burning desire for redemption, the decision. That night, Elena sat in her tiny apartment, staring at Marcus Stone's business card. She knew that accepting his offer would change everything. There would be no going back, no safe path forward. But safety had gotten her nowhere. Trust had gotten her betrayed. Being kind and soft had left her with nothing but ashes. She thought about her grandmother, who had survived poverty, discrimination, and countless obstacles to build Casa Martinez from nothing. Her grandmother had been fierce, uncompromising, and strong. She had taught Elena that family and honor were worth fighting for. Elena picked up her phone and dialed the number on the card. Marcus answered on the first ring, as if he'd been waiting for her call. I'm in, she said simply. But I have conditions. Name them. I don't just want revenge, Elena said, her voice steady and cold. I want to destroy everything Daniel has built. I want him to feel what I felt when I watched my life burn. And when it's over, I want him to know that I'm the one who did it. There was a pause, then Marcus laughed. It was a sound of genuine appreciation. Elena Martinez, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful partnership. When do we start? Tomorrow, Marcus said. Come to my office at 9 a.m. Bring your grandmother's recipe book if you manage to save it. It burned in the fire. No, Marcus said quietly. It didn't. I had someone pull it from the building before the flames destroyed everything. I've been holding it safe for you. Elena felt tears spring to her eyes. Why? Because I knew you'd make the right choice eventually. And because your grandmother's legacy deserves better than to be stolen by people like the Blackwoods. After they hung up, Elena walked to her window and looked out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Daniel Blackwood was probably celebrating his victory, thinking he'd gotten away with everything. He had no idea that the woman he'd broken was about to rise from the ashes stronger than before. Elena Martinez had been destroyed, but from her ashes something new was being born. something fierce and unforgiving. Something that would make Daniel Blackwood regret the day he ever heard her name. The fire had taken everything from her. Now it was time to return the favor. Part 2: Rising from the Flames. The transformation begins. 6 months had passed since that fateful night when Elena accepted Marcus Stone's offer. She stood in front of the full-length mirror in her new penthouse apartment, barely recognizing the woman staring back at her. Gone was the tired chef in worn-out uniforms and practical shoes. The woman in the mirror wore a sleek black dress that hugged her curves perfectly. Her dark hair, once always tied back in a messy bun, now fell in glossy waves past her shoulders. Her eyes, lined with subtle makeup, looked sharp and calculating. She looked like someone who belonged in boardrooms and exclusive restaurants. But the biggest change wasn't visible in the mirror. It was the steel in her spine, the ice in her veins, and the burning determination in her heart. "Ready for today?" Marcus asked from the doorway. Elena turned to face her partner in revenge. Over the past 6 months, Marcus had become something more than just an ally. He'd become her mentor, her friend, and if she was honest with herself, something she wasn't quite ready to name. Every day they spent together, planning and strategizing, she felt the attraction between them growing stronger. "I'm ready," she said confidently. Marcus smiled with approval. "Good. Because today is the day we announce your restaurant to the world." The training. The transformation hadn't been easy. Marcus had put Elena through an intensive program that covered everything from advanced culinary techniques to business management to public speaking. He'd hired the best chefs in the city to expand her skills, brought in business consultants to teach her about finance and marketing, and even enrolled her in acting classes to help her control her emotions and present the image she wanted. "You can't just be a good chef anymore," Marcus had told her on day 1. "You need to be a brand, a force, someone people can't ignore." Daniel wins because he understands that restaurants aren't just about food. They're about image, status, and power. Elena had absorbed everything like a sponge. She studied Daniel's restaurants, analyzing their menus, their decor, their pricing strategies. She read every business book Marcus recommended, often staying up until 3 in the morning taking notes. She practiced her cooking until her hands were covered in burns and cuts, perfecting dishes that would blow people's minds. But Marcus hadn't just trained her in business and cooking. He'd also taught her about the Blackwood family's secrets. Together, they'd uncovered evidence of fraud, tax evasion, and multiple safety violations across the Blackwood restaurant empire. They'd identified Daniel's weaknesses: his pride, his need to always be the best, his inability to handle real competition. "Knowledge is power," Marcus had said, "and we're going to use everything we know to bring them down." The new restaurant, Phoenix Rising, opened on a Friday night in the heart of the city's most exclusive dining district. The name was Elena's choice, a symbol of her rebirth from the ashes of Casa Martinez. The restaurant itself was stunning, a perfect blend of modern elegance and warm intimacy. The menu featured elevated versions of her grandmother's traditional recipes, combined with innovative techniques that made each dish a work of art. But the real genius was in the marketing. Marcus had used his connections to ensure that every food critic, social media influencer, and wealthy investor in the city received a personal invitation to opening night. He'd created mystery and anticipation, dropping hints about a new chef who was about to revolutionize the restaurant scene. Elena stood in the kitchen of Phoenix Rising, her heart pounding as the first orders came in. Her team of talented chefs worked around her with precision, executing the menu she'd spent months perfecting. This was her moment, her chance to prove that she was more than just a victim. "Table 7 wants to meet the chef," one of the servers announced. Elena took a deep breath and walked into the dining room. The restaurant was packed with exactly the crowd Marcus had promised. She made her way to table 7 and froze. Sitting there, with a look of absolute shock on his face, was Daniel Blackwood. The first confrontation. For a long moment they just stared at each other. Daniel's face went through several expressions: shock, disbelief, and finally poorly concealed anger. Beside him sat Sophia, her former best friend, who looked like she'd seen a ghost. "Elena," Daniel said, his voice uncertain. What are you doing here?" Elena smiled, and it was nothing like the soft, trusting smile she used to give him. This smile was sharp as a knife. I work here. I'm the head chef and owner. Sophia's mouth fell open. But we heard you left the city. That you were working in some diner in another state. Rumors, Elena said smoothly. I've been busy building something new. Something better than Casa Martinez ever was. Daniel's eyes narrowed. She could see him doing calculations, trying to figure out how she could possibly afford this place. Where did you get the money? I found an investor who believes in my talent, Elena said, deliberately not mentioning Marcus by name. Someone who sees potential where others only saw weakness. This is insane, Daniel said, standing up abruptly. His voice was getting louder, drawing attention from other tables. You can't just open a restaurant across the street from one of my family's establishments. You're going to fail just like before. Actually, Elena said calmly, your family's restaurant is 3 blocks away. I chose this location very deliberately. Close enough to be competition. Far enough to prove I'm not afraid of you. Daniel leaned in close, his handsome face twisted with anger. You're making a huge mistake. My family will crush you. We'll make sure no supplier works with you. No critic reviews you favorably. No customer ever comes back. Elena didn't flinch. Try it. But before you do, you should know that I'm not the scared girl you used anymore. I've learned a lot in the past 6 months. About business, about power, and about all the dirty little secrets the Blackwood family has been hiding. She saw fear flicker in his eyes before he masked it. Are you threatening me? I'm warning you, Elena corrected. Stay away from my restaurant, stay away from my suppliers, and stay away from me. Because if you come after me, I'll show everyone exactly what kind of man you really are. She turned and walked back to her kitchen, feeling the eyes of every diner in the restaurant following her. Her hands were shaking, but her head was held high. She just declared war on Daniel Blackwood in front of witnesses, and there was no turning back now. In the kitchen, Marcus was waiting for her with a proud smile. That was perfect. You handled that exactly right. He's going to retaliate, Elena said, her voice shaking slightly now that the adrenaline was wearing off. I'm counting on it, Marcus replied. When he does, we'll be ready. And every move he makes will just give us more ammunition. The success. The reviews started coming in within hours. Food critics raved about Phoenix Rising, calling it the most exciting new restaurant in years. Social media exploded with photos of Elena's dishes and glowing testimonials. Within a week, the restaurant was fully booked for the next 2 months. But Elena's success was about more than just good food. Marcus had orchestrated a brilliant publicity campaign that positioned her as an underdog success story. Carefully edited versions of her past were leaked to the press. The struggling family restaurant, the personal setback that nearly destroyed her, and her triumphant comeback. People loved a redemption story, and Elena became the darling of the food world almost overnight. Daniel tried to fight back. He called in favors, tried to pressure suppliers, and even attempted to plant fake negative reviews online. But Marcus had anticipated every move. He'd secured contracts with suppliers who couldn't be intimidated, hired a reputation management team to counter any negative publicity, and had lawyers ready to pursue anyone who libeled Elena. Every time Daniel made a move against Phoenix Rising, it backfired spectacularly. When he tried to steal one of her sous chefs, the chef went to the media with the story, making Daniel look desperate and vindictive. When he attempted to buy the building her restaurant was in, Marcus outbid him and then leaked the story to the press, making Daniel look like a bully picking on a successful female entrepreneur. He's getting sloppy, Marcus observed one evening as they reviewed the latest reports. Anger is making him careless. Elena nodded, studying the documents spread across the table. They were in Marcus's office, a sleek space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. This had become their routine: days running the restaurant, evenings planning the next phase of their campaign against the Blackwoods. I almost feel sorry for him, Elena lied. She didn't feel sorry at all. She felt powerful, vindicated, and hungry for more. Marcus looked up at her, his gray eyes intense. Don't. Daniel Blackwood doesn't deserve your sympathy. Neither does his family. They've hurt too many people. Your sister, Elena said softly. Marcus's jaw tightened. Yes. Isabella. She was 24 when she died. She had her whole life ahead of her. Elena reached across the table and placed her hand over his. It was a gesture of comfort, but the moment their skin touched, electricity seemed to spark between them. They both froze, acutely aware of how close they were. Marcus, Elena began, but he pulled his hand away. We should stay focused, he said, his voice carefully neutral. There's still a lot of work to do. Elena felt a flash of disappointment, but she pushed it down. He was right. They couldn't afford distractions, not when they were so close to achieving their goals. But she couldn't deny the growing feeling she had for this man who had saved her when she had nothing, who believed in her when no one else did. The unwelcome return. The knock on Elena's apartment door came late one night, 2 months after Phoenix Rising opened. She wasn't expecting anyone, and Marcus had gone home hours ago. Cautiously, she checked the peephole and gasped. Sophia stood in the hallway, looking thin and miserable. Her designer clothes couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes or the defeated slump of her shoulders. Elena's first instinct was to ignore her, to leave her former best friend standing in the cold. But curiosity won out. She opened the door but didn't invite Sophia in. What do you want? Elena asked coldly. To apologize, Sophia said, her voice breaking. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need you to know how sorry I am. Sorry. Elena's voice was sharp. You helped Daniel steal my family's recipes. You betrayed our friendship. You stood by and watched him destroy everything I had built. And now you're sorry. Tears streamed down Sophia's face. He lied to me too. He said he loved me, that we would build something together. But the moment Phoenix Rising became successful, he dropped me. He said I was useless to him now that you were the one everyone wanted to know. Despite her anger, Elena felt a small twinge of sympathy. She knew what it felt like to be used and discarded by Daniel Blackwood. But that didn't mean she could forgive. You made your choice, Elena said. You chose him over me. Over our friendship. Over everything we had shared since we were children. Now you have to live with that decision. Please, Sophia begged. I can help you. I know things about Daniel, about his family. Things they don't want anyone to know. Elena's eyes sharpened. What kind of things? Let me in, Sophia pleaded. Let me prove that I'm on your side now. Let me help you bring him down. Elena hesitated. Every instinct told her not to trust Sophia, that this could be another trap. But she also knew that information from an insider could be invaluable. She stepped aside and let Sophia enter. You have 5 minutes, Elena said. And if I even suspect you're playing me again, I'll have you thrown out. Sophia nodded eagerly and began to talk. What she revealed made Elena's blood run cold. Daniel hadn't just stolen recipes and set fires. He'd been systematically destroying competitors for years, using his family's money and connections to ruin anyone who threatened their dominance. And there was more, much more, that the Blackwood family had buried. When Sophia finished, Elena immediately called Marcus. He arrived within 20 minutes, listened to Sophia's information, and began making plans to verify everything she'd said. If this is all true, Marcus said grimly, we have enough to not just destroy Daniel's reputation. We can bring down the entire Blackwood empire. The competition, the annual Metropolitan Culinary Championship, was the most prestigious cooking competition in the city. Winning it meant instant fame, respect from peers, and opportunities most chefs could only dream of. Daniel Blackwood had won it 3 years in a row, cementing his reputation as one of the city's top chefs. This year, Elena entered the competition. The announcement sent shockwaves through the culinary world. The media immediately framed it as a showdown between the rising star and the established champion, between the underdog and the dynasty. Reporters camped outside Phoenix Rising, asking Elena if she thought she could actually beat Daniel Blackwood. I don't think I can beat him, Elena told one reporter with a confident smile. I know I can. The competition took place over 3 days, with different challenges testing every aspect of the contestants' skills. Elena advanced through the preliminary rounds effortlessly, her dishes earning perfect or near-perfect scores from the judges. Daniel also advanced, but Elena noticed something interesting. He looked worried. On the final day, the two of them stood in the competition kitchen, facing off in front of hundreds of spectators and television cameras. The challenge was simple. Create a dish using a secret ingredient that honored your culinary heritage. The secret ingredient was revealed. Chocolate, the same ingredient that had been the foundation of her grandmother's famous mole sauce. Elena's hands moved with practiced precision as she created a modern interpretation of that classic dish. She worked with complete focus, blocking out the cameras, the crowd, and Daniel's presence just a few feet away. This dish represented everything she'd lost and everything she'd become. It had to be perfect. When time was called, both chefs presented their dishes to the judges. Daniel had created something technically impressive but ultimately soulless, a display of skill without heart. Elena's dish made the judges close their eyes in appreciation, transported by flavors that somehow managed to be both familiar and completely new. When the winner was announced, Elena heard her name and felt tears streaming down her face. She'd done it. She'd beaten Daniel Blackwood at his own game, in front of the entire city. Daniel's face turned purple with rage. He grabbed her arm as she walked past him. "You haven't won anything. This isn't over." Elena pulled her arm free and looked him in the eye. "You're right. This isn't over. It's just beginning." The hidden connection. That night, Elena and Marcus celebrated at Phoenix Rising after closing. They sat at a small table in the empty restaurant, drinking champagne and reviewing the mountain of press coverage from the competition. "You were amazing today," Marcus said, his eyes warm with admiration. "I've never seen anyone cook with that much passion and precision." "I learned from the best," Elena replied. "My grandmother, and you. I didn't teach you how to cook." "No, but you taught me how to fight. How to turn pain into power. How to never give up." Marcus reached across the table and took her hand. This time he didn't pull away. "Elena, there's something I need to tell you. Something I should have mentioned months ago." "What is it?" He took a deep breath. "When I said I was watching the Blackwoods for 3 years, that was true. But I wasn't just watching them. I was investigating them, building a case, collecting evidence.